Hi friends, Krista here. Thank you so much for stopping by Books and Jams today. It is time to talk about the rest of all that I read in the month of March. I'm so thankful that I did a mid-month wrap-up, and I'm so thankful that I vlogged a Newbery weekend and another secret vlog that I did about blind dates with the books, because if I had to talk about all of these books today, we would be going through, I think, 33 books. And nobody wants to sit for 33 books. So I will link down below my mid-month wrap-up where I talk about 12 books that I read at the beginning of the month. I will link my blind date with a book vlog where I talk about these 4 books, which I haven't officially wrapped up. Measuring Up by Lily Lamont, Sarah Lost and Found by Virginia Castleman, The Secret of the Old Clock, Nancy Drew, first in the Nancy Drew series by Carolyn Keene, and Gone Away Lake by Elizabeth Enright. But before I go any farther, I want to do the drawing for Gone Away Lake because I haven't done that yet. So let me pull up here my list of people. Okay, so I have 53 people. So a random number generator, I just put in 1 to 53. I'm going to click generate and the number is 44. Can you see that? 44. So let's go see who's number 44 on my list. It is Michelle. Michele. I will have already reached out to the correct Michelle by the time this goes live, but congratulations, Michelle. I do have an extra copy of Gone Away Lake that I will be sending to you. Also down below, I will link my Newbery weekend vlog where I read 7 Newbery books in one weekend. They were Mercy Suarez Changes Gears by Meg Medina, Johnny Tremaine by Esther Forbes, Shiloh by Phillips Reynolds Naylor, The Higher Power of Lucky by Susan Patron, The White Stag by Kate Sarity, Joyful Noise by Paul Fleischman, and A Year Down Yonder by Richard Peck. So my favorite of those, I will tell you real quick, was Mercy Suarez, but I also really enjoyed these 2. The rest were either okay or not that great. All right, now I have, oh man, let me do the 3 books that are not exactly middle grade that I read at the end of the month. So I did read Sense and Second Degree Murder by Tirzah Price. This is the second book in her companion Jane Austen book retellings with murder mysteries as part of the plot. She keeps a lot of the storyline and the vibe of the book and the characterization of the different people in her stories. Sense and Second Degree Murder obviously is a retelling of Sense and Sensibility. So in it, we follow the Dashwoods. Their father, right at the very beginning, dies. Eleanor, the oldest sister, finds him. The father in this book was running a private detective agency, which was basically just him and his daughter, Marianne. Marianne and Eleanor are convinced that their father did not die of a heart attack, as the doctor told them. Marianne finds a substance in his tea, and he doesn't normally even drink tea, so they thought it was weird there was a teacup in there, and they found some kind of substance in his tea. So they're convinced that he was poisoned. Eleanor is into chemistry. She loves sciences, especially chemistry. And so she and Marianne together, who used to help her dad, try to figure out what happened. But John, the brother or the half brother, and his wife Fanny are just as horrible in this book as they are in the original. Margaret in this one had a bigger role. She's the youngest sister. She was a scene stealer in this one, and she was a lot of fun. I just thought the whole story was very compelling and a lot of fun. It was delightful. I really enjoyed reading Sense and Second Degree Murder. Another NetGalley that I completed this month, I listened to the audiobook of Finlay, Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead by El Cosimano. This is the sequel to Finlay, Donovan is Killing It. I don't want to tell you too much about this one because it is a sequel, but we continue to follow Finlay, who is quite a chaotic woman. Like, she would stress me out just because she kind of lives in this place of chaos and I can't handle that. But I didn't quite enjoy this one as much as the first. In the first book, it was almost a comedy of errors. Finlay is a writer. She's talking to her agent in a Panera type store one time, talking about how her killer is going to kill somebody or whatever. Someone overhears the conversation and misinterprets everything that's being said and ultimately invites Finlay to kill her husband and offers a crap ton of money for it. So Finlay along with her nanny Vero, get wrapped up in these escapades, and those escapades continue in this story. I did feel like the pacing was a little bit slower in this one, and I wasn't quite as invested, but a lot of the comedy was still there. A lot of the characteristics of the first one were still there. I just felt like this was like a bridge to whatever's going to happen in the third book. There's got to be a third book, because this just felt like it was bringing us somewhere, but there wasn't as much excitement along the way. That's how I felt while reading it, but it was still funny. It was still very cute. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars, maybe 3. I might have put it down to 3. I don't remember. The third book that I'm going to talk about that wasn't exactly a middle grade was the Caldecott winner for this year, Watercress, by Andrea Wang, and pictures are by Jason Chin. The Caldecott Award is for illustrations in picture books. I wanted to just check it out, and I was in the library with one of my little ones one time this month, and I just saw it, and so I just grabbed it real quick to read. There is a picture book readathon, Picture This, I think it's called, readathon happening in April. I'm not participating in it, but this would be a lovely book to read for that. It's about this Chinese family, immigrant family, who live in America, and the older girl is kind of embarrassed by her family. She's not thrilled about having to move. She doesn't like bringing her Chinese food to lunch. Her family stops to pick up watercress on the side of the road, and she's super embarrassed by that. But the pictures are lovely. She kind of, look at that grumpy little face. Yeah, it just was a sweet story of this family, and the mom remembers back to time before they left China, and it just was a very sweet story, and the pictures were very moving. I really loved the illustrations in that. So I did complete that. Now on to some middle grade. I actually only have 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. I have 7 books left to talk to you about. So I will end with the group read. So let me talk about the 3 that were just kind of random. I did, in the course of all of the reading that I read this month, get all of the prompts completed. So I never went through which books applied to which prompt, because I have multiple books for each prompt. But this book that I'll talk about first, The Lost Language by Claudia Mills, is an Amanda Made Me Do It pick. She listened to this earlier in the month, and I liked what she had to say about it, so I picked it up. I'm giving this one 3 stars. I did not love it, I don't think, as much as Amanda. In this book, we follow 2 friends, both named Elizabeth. One is a Betsy, but they call each other Lizard and Bumble or something like that. Betsy's mom is a linguist, and particularly studies languages that are dying out, and writes a book or an article or something about each of those dying languages. She connects with different people who still speak those languages, and she's passionate about trying to preserve something about each of these different languages. Well, these 2 girls see how frustrated the mom is that there are just so many languages out there to preserve, and she knows she's not going to be able to do it all, and she's applying for these different grants and whatnot, and always just seems stressed and depressed. And it is a book that's going to deal with mental health quite a bit by the time it's over. But these 2 girls decide they are going to do their part, and they choose one of these languages that are dying, and they are going to learn it so that they can preserve it in that way, and try to help Betsy's mom. The one friend is very super annoying, has some stuff going on at home on her own, but she is just bossy and rude, and I really did not appreciate that friendship. Yeah, there wasn't much back and forth. It was just the one girl got everything that she wanted, and was kind of mean about it to the other. I didn't like the mom either. Even once I recognized that we were dealing with mental illness here, it just was a difficult book for me, because I think it talked about some important topics, but I'm not sure that it was done in a way that there was enough redemption in my mind for everything that was going on. Not that every book has to have redemption. I just didn't care for it as much as I was hoping to. So that one got 3 stars. A book that I loved, that's very overdue at my library, is Starfish by Lisa Phipps. Oh, this one was written in verse, and so is Starfish. So I listened to this one day during nap time when the little kid that I watched was taking a nap. This is a book about a young girl in middle school who is fat and gets bullied by her family and people at school. And this is one of those books that is an extreme picture of everything that possibly goes on. The bullying was extreme. The adults who did not step up to help out were extreme. she had a special relationship with her father, but I was also frustrated with the dad because his profession was as a psychologist, and yet some of the things that were going on in his home, he seemed to have no control over it. He wasn't much of a help. The mom was straight awful in this book, but it was a beautiful story of this girl making friends and learning to speak up for herself and be an advocate for herself. And I loved it so much. I gave it 5 stars. I think it's an important read. I think it was a fabulous read overall. Very, very good. Loved it. Another book that I absolutely loved was All 13, The Incredible Cave Rescue of the Thai Boys Soccer Team by Christina Soontorvan. I think this is possibly my favorite book of the month. This is a nonfiction. You know what? I need to read more nonfiction because for the last couple of years, I've had some standout nonfiction that made it to the top of my list of the whole year. And I really just need to read more because I think I love it secretly. I always say that it's harder for me to read. This was not hard to read at all. I was on the edge of my seat. I am not one who paid attention to the news. I still don't pay attention to the news. So I don't remember on my own in 2018 when this happened, when this Thai boys soccer team went on an outing into these caves, and then there was a flash flood. It was during rainy season, and the cave became flooded, and they got trapped. They found a spot to be safe, but they were trapped inside this cave, and all kinds of people came to help figure out how to get these boys out. I mean, we had people that were helping redirect water. We had people that were military from Thailand and America and other countries coming. We had divers from around the world coming to help out. It was crazy. The title is All 13, The Incredible Cave Rescue of the Thai Boys Soccer Team. So I knew that they were going to be rescued because it's in the title, but I was on the edge of my seat because it was a seemingly impossible situation. It was very interesting to learn about Thai culture, Buddhism, but there's these little, it's almost like children's textbook format where there's like the main text, but then there are these sidebar situations. So I learned about limestone and the makeup of the cave and why it flooded so quickly. We learned about diving and rules of diving. There's incredible photography all the way throughout. And just imagining being part of the team of helpers or the parents that were standing there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And the neighboring farmers, we got maps of the cave. I mean, it just was incredibly put together. Such a stunning read. I loved it. 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 Did you know that I loved that book? I did. Oh my goodness. I'll talk about my 3 books that were connected to my Patreon. So in March, I announced in my TBR that our group read was going to be, our book club book for my Patreon people was going to be The Shape of Thunder. And then I went back to look at the poll, and actually Peter Pan had pulled ahead. So we did 2 books in March as a patron book club. So I'll talk about Peter Pan first. Classic by J.M. Barrie. I read it right immediately after reading Shape of Thunder, and I think that hindered my enjoyment of this book a little bit. I really didn't care for it much at all. I know some people really love this. So it's about Wendy and her 2 brothers and Peter Pan, who comes and whisks them off to Neverland, ultimately, right? It's a little bit darker, obviously, than the Disney show. There was senseless kind of killing. At one point, the narrator, who occasionally will just turn and speak to the reader. It's almost like you can feel him turning his head and speak to the reader. The narrator would be like, just so that you can see how brutal these pirates were, let's have them kill one another. Let's have one get killed off. And Captain Hook would just turn and like kill one of the pirates. I was like, what? Tinkerbell has a potty mouth in here. I was like, Tinkerbell, this is a children's book. Please watch your language. Tinkerbell just was a lot more brutal than I imagined. Very jealous and evil little fairy. But once I changed my thinking to what I think it really is that Neverland is kind of like a child's imagination, a physical manifestation of a child's imagination. And then I can imagine kids, especially kids when this was first written, like in the 1950s, I think, or 40s, playing pirates and Indians and being stranded out on an island. And that's what kids would play. I had a fun conversation with my patrons about like, what would your Neverland be made up of if you played, if it was created from your imagination? So some people were like, Little House on the Prairie was what they played. I played school a lot growing up, and house and like cosmetology. So like all of that would be part of my Neverland. But once I changed my thinking to realize that Neverland was an imagination of a child, it got a little bit better for me. Like I was able to read it and get some enjoyment out of it. I did only give it 3 stars. I didn't care for it that much. I'm glad that I read the original, but it wasn't quite what I was hoping for. But I did love The Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga. Hooey! This book had me crying. In this one, we follow next door neighbor friends, Quinn and Cora. They had been best friends for a really long time. But a year before the events of this book, Cora's older sister was killed in a school shooting, and Quinn's older brother was the shooter. And this put a big block in their friendship. Like they stopped talking to each other. I liked that the school shooting was off the page. We didn't see it happen, but we're just a year later following the aftermath, basically, and the grief, the incredible grief and guilt, and the story of these 2 girls and their friendship. They do begin talking again because Quinn saw an article or interview or something about time travel, and she decides that she wants to time travel back to before the shooting so that she can prevent her brother from doing this horrific thing. So she talks to Cora about it. So Quinn and Cora together decide that they are going to try to create this time travel experience. They're going to try to find a wormhole or whatever to try to travel back in time. In the process, we get to see both of these 2 girls and their families and the different ways that they are handling the grief of their daughters and their own grief. I love that for one family, therapy was a big part of it. For the other family, it was so sad because they just refused to talk about it at all, and how that affected these 2 girls. So it definitely dives deep into grief and friendship, and I absolutely loved this book. It was an easy 5 stars for me, and I just loved it. The other book that is connected to Patreon is the book that was chosen for me to read in the month of March, and I did read it, Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. I listened to this on audio, and I really enjoyed this one as well. In this, we follow Jade, who is a very artistic young girl, very smart. Her mom wants her to take every advantage of life that she can in order to make it out of her neighborhood. So she attends a private school. She gets a scholarship to attend a private school where she is one of the few Black students at the school. She gets some opportunities there, though. She signed up for this mentorship program that she takes part in. There is an opportunity to travel overseas, and she doesn't get recommended for it the first year. And she really learns throughout the book, as often in middle grade, how to speak up for herself a little bit more. And she does, by the end, goes and approaches that teacher and says, hey, like has a conversation with that teacher in a very respectful way. I loved the mom in this book and how hard she worked and how much she challenged and pushed Jade in different areas. I loved the mom so much. I liked the mentor too, even though she also was a young Black girl. She had a different experience than Jade, and she learned some things. They learned from each other, which was really cool. The type of art that Jade does is collage, and she's very good at it. So I loved how art was woven into this story of Jade really learning who she was and to stand up for the things that she wanted and to speak up for herself. And I thought it was really well done. This is not written in verse, but it almost felt like it, the way that as I was listening, it felt like it could have been written in verse because it was just written so beautifully. So yeah, I really appreciated this book. This did win a Newbery Honor and the Coretta Scott King Award in 2017. So definitely worth the read, and I'm so glad that was recommended to me. And finally, I will talk about our group read for the month of March, which was Pony by R.J. Palacio. This was a fun book to read and then discuss with everybody in our last live last Wednesday. It was such a great book. Oh my goodness, I really enjoyed this. It's fun because it's kind of a genre buster. It's a bit of a historical, a bit of a Western, bit of paranormal. But in this book, we follow Silas. Silas lives alone with his dad, and his only other companion is a ghost named Mittenwool. Silas and his dad have a very close relationship, and throughout the story, through flashbacks, we get glimpses of their relationship, which was really just beautiful. But right at the beginning, a couple horsemen show up at their at their home and tell the dad that he needs to come with them for some project and he'll get lots of money and come back in a week. And the dad decides to go with them, kind of under duress. So the dad is gone and Silas is like, what on earth just happened? Why did they take my dad? Shortly thereafter, this pony shows up, a bald-faced pony with bright blue eyes, as seen on the cover. And Silas decides he's going to go after the dad. So Mittenwool and Silas head off into the woods, which are a little bit scary and creepy. Silas has the ability to see other ghosts as well, so that plays a part in the story. And then the western part, there's kind of like a shootout towards the end, and there's a sheriff and a deputy. And we learn about the dad and his backstory. We learn about the mom and why she's not in the picture, but still a big part of the story. We learn about Mittenwool and how he came around, and a little bit more about Silas too. I thought it was very good. I did give it 5 stars. I think I'm going to go back to 4. I don't know. I keep going back and forth between 4 and 5 stars. The one thing that I didn't love about this is that we were building up to this climax, which was very exciting. And then there was a lot still to come after that, which felt like a drawn out epilogue. But as I loved all the information that was in that last part, I thought it was interesting, and we got all these different storylines tied up. We learned about the mother, we learned about Mittenwool, we learned about what happened to Silas and where's he going to go now, and all of these different things, and even travel ahead into the future a few years, not future, but we travel ahead a few years and see Silas as he grows up a little bit. All of which was wonderful to learn about, but it felt like that ending part was a little too long for me. But I will say, for a book that I was not sure how I was going to feel about it, I did end up loving this. I did cry a couple times. I laughed out loud a little bit. I was creeped out at one part. I thought it was fantastic. I really loved this book. So yay for a fabulous group read. Yay for a fabulous middle grade March. I would love to say thank you. A huge, huge thank you to everyone who participated in Middle Grade March, whether you read one book or whether you read 30, whether you read something in between, whether you completed all the prompts or not. I really appreciate you guys joining in for the 5th year of Middle Grade March. Thank you for all of you who purchased merch. We did send almost $500 to First Book. It's already been sent. I'm so thrilled that we were able to give such a big contribution to a literacy organization because of your purchases. So thank you so much. I'm already excited about next year. I'm already excited for what that will hold and for participating with you guys all again. So don't stop reading middle grade. You can read middle grade all year. There are other booktubers who do other middle grade readathons throughout the year. Participate in them. Read some great middle grade. Let me know what you're reading. I would love to hear about it. But that is going to be it for my wrap up today. I would love to hear what was your favorite book of the month. For me, it's like a tie between these two. I think these two for sure were my favorites of the month. Thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me today. I really appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you in another video very soon. Bye.